Hi everyone, it's Anna Haferman, and today we're going to do some granny squares on the LK150. And you can pretty much do this on any knitting machine. These are hand manipulated, so any machine will work. Before I get into it, I want to thank everyone who donated to my Buy Me a Coffee link, to the YouTube super thanks, and to the people who became members of my channel. Your support really does help me and allows me to make more videos, so I appreciate that. So let's start. To do this, I'm using DK weight yarn, and whatever machine you use, you just use yarn that's appropriate for your machine. This is a number 3 yarn in the US. It's DK in the UK. Not sure what you would call it in every other country, but you should be able to find it. This is a 75% acrylic, 25% wool blend, so it has a little bit of body to it, and it actually looks really nice. It comes in a bunch of colors. I will put a link to where you can order this online. Premier has a bunch of yarn on their site that in a much greater selection than any of the big box stores in the US. And right now this was on sale for $2 for 100 grams, so that's a pretty good deal. So what I'm using is this. I'm going to use this violet color and a cream color. For these I think this one was called Russet. Maybe that was called Teal, and that was Russet as well. So I found in the back of this book, which is it's a knitting stitch pattern book with lots of different stitch patterns. But in the back of the book, it's got a bunch of stuff, but in the back of the book, it has how to do all these granny squares. Now, there are instructions on this page as to basically how you do it. It's a little confusing, and I did find a lot of typos in it, so that was difficult. For example, this one says, as a rule, the black portion of the pattern card means the needle is blah blah blah. It should say blank, and then this should be numbered 1, 2, and 3. On these pages there were some typos in how they, so 14 plus 3 is 42 plus 2 is 44. So there's a bunch of things that were wrong in it, which makes it even more confusing. This one, which is the one we're going to do, had a few things missing. And after doing it and trying to figure it out how they did it their way, I figured out what it should be, at least as far as I know. So I had tried to do these in the past and didn't have a whole lot of luck, and then tried it again recently and just figured some stuff out. So I'm going to show you how to do this one, which is number 1310. I've tried a couple other ones. This one was relatively straightforward. This one I still haven't figured out, and a couple others just seem to be a little more trouble than they were worth. So we're going to start with this one. And so it's got instructions here, but I found this wasn't a whole lot of enough information, but I'm going to go through with everything I figured out to make it work for me. So it says to cast on 50 stitches because it was 8, it's 6 repeats of 8 stitches. So that's 48, and then 2 seaming stitches, 1 on each end. So we're going to go from 25 to 25, which is 48 plus 2, the seaming stitches, which is 50. And then in the book, it didn't really say how to number it, but I wrote out a little chart of how it made sense for me to do it. So I'm going to follow my chart, and I will put this in the description box so you can look at it. So what I realized is you want to number your 8-stitch repeats, but you want to split one so that you don't have, so it joins here, but basically if we started at 1, it wouldn't make a nice join. It would be too hard. So we're going to skip that first one. We're going to number this for, what did I say? Let's see. We'll number it 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we'll come around here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Eight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it seems a little tedious having to mark each one, but it really does make it easier to do the pattern as you're going. So over here it started with 5, 6, 7, 8, and then this is 1, 2, 3, 4. And these last two don't get numbered because those are seaming stitches. So there's our numbering sequence. That's an 8 right there. And then this is basically 9 rows, and that's it. So, but there's specific directions as to what you have to do each row. So over here on this, I've written down everything I need to do. So that's how you set it up. And then I'm going to set the row counter to 1 because I want it to be, when I'm on row 1 reading the instructions for row 1, it will say 1 here. That's just going to make it easier for me. And so the first thing before we get to row 1 is we have to do a crochet cast on. And that's this part around the edge. So what I'll do is leave a tail of yarn because I'll need to seam this up. I don't need a whole lot, but you will want a decent sized tail. So I'm going to make a little slip knot. Then I'm going to get my latch tool, and I'm using the smaller end. I've done a few of these over the past couple days, and I found the smaller one works better. So I'm going to put that on the needle like that. And then I'm going to go between the first and second needles, which are pulled out. And then I'm just going to pull that through, go through the second and third. And my yarn's just coming straight from the feeder up here, from the antennas. So that gives it a little tension. I'm going to actually put a clip on this to weight that down. So we just go between the needles. I have the stitch all the way at the bottom of the hook, and I'm pulling it down. And so that's a crochet cast on. If you are unfamiliar with this, you may want to practice a little bit. I don't do it so much. I'm not very good with it, but I've done a bunch of these little granny squares in the past few days. I've gotten better. So if you just go a little slow, you don't want it to be too tight. That one sort of was a little tight. So you just want to pull it. Make sure the old stitch goes behind the latch, and then the new stitch can go in the hook. Just like a machine needle would work. It's the same thing. So then you're just pulling out a little bit. And I'm kind of relying on this to give me some tension. So then we just go all the way across. And it really doesn't take too long. Once you've done it a few times, it's pretty easy. And it's really pushing the needle up. And this is really the best cast on for this because you like the crocheted edge around the motif, as they call them in this book. I'm going to call it a granny square. The crochet edge really does give it a nice edge, but I mean, you could do an E-wrap, but it would be kind of floppy and probably wouldn't look as nice. But if you think that could work in some instances. So I'm just going across and doing the crochet cast on. And with color A, this is color A, the purple on the right, and the white is going to be color B. So I'll do this whole thing. I'm pulling it down. And if you haven't done this, just practice it a little bit. And, you know, these little motifs are only 9 rows. It's a really small little project, so it's not going to take too long. Once you get to the last one, you want to put that hook on that needle, the stitch on the needle, and then pull the yarn under it, and then put it in the carriage over here. So now my chart that I wrote out, I'm going to go look here, and I'm on row 1. Tension, I'm going to put my carriage on 5.5, and it's on normal. So the carriage is on these top levers are all the way to the back, and the front levers are all the way to the front. So it's just on normal, whatever your machine is. And I'm on color A, and my action, what I need to do that row is going to just be to knit. So I'm going to knit across, and because I'm knitting off from a crocheted cast on and I don't have weight on this yet, I'm going to go very slow and deliberately. And I'm also kind of pushing down on the carriage, and that hopefully will knit every single stitch off. So I can feel them going one by one. If you go too fast, you're probably going to miss a few. So just go a few at a time. Yeah, very slow. Okay, so there we are, and it looks like everything knit off. And then, so that's row 1. Now I'm on row 2, and still on tension 5.5, and then I set my carriage to hold. So it says right here, hold. So I just push these front levers, these levers, the Russell levers, forward on both sides. And then it says put 5 in hold. That means number 5, every single number 5 on the that I marked out is going to go to hold. So that's going to be that one, that one, that one, 5, 5, and that's it. So I should have 6, because each group of 8 is one of these little points. So and the ones we're tucking are actually right here. So that's that number 5 needle. That's what's going to end up being the tucked stitch. So then don't have a whole lot of knitting on here, but I'm going to at least try to weight down the end stitches, and then by the next row I'm going to get some more weight on it. So I did put the number 5s in hold, and then it just says to knit. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm still going to go pretty slow for that second row. There we go. So everything knit off that time. And now I'm going to try to weight it down. There's still not a whole lot of knitting here, but you can probably get some weights under if you really try. So now I'm on row 3, and I'm going to set my tension to 5. So what's happening here is we're going to be tucking and decreasing and making the tension smaller, so it gets kind of smaller as we go. So we're going down to 5 on the carriage, and then it says to set the carriage, well, the carriage is already set for hold, and then it says to go to color B. So what I'm going to do is take the purple and park that over here on the right. I don't know if you can see that. It's parked over there. And then I'm going to take this white and thread that. Okay. So now for row 3, it says go to tension 5, we're in hold, color B, and it says transfer 8 and 2 to 1 and leave the needles out of work. N-O-W. Did you see that? No. So now with, so row 3, I've got tension 5, I'm in hold, color B, which is the white, and it says transfer 8 and 2, stitches 8 and 2 to 1, and N-O-W, keep the needles out of work. This is my little shorthand that was easier for me than reading the chart. So what it says take the 8s and the 2s to the 1s. So I'm going to go over here on this first 8, transfer that over to 1, take the 2 and transfer that back to the 1. Okay, so and then keep those stitches out of work. Then I'm going to go here to the 8. No, that's not the 8. 8, go over to the 1 and take the 2 and go back to the 1. So I have 3 stitches on that 1. I'm going to put those 2, the 8 and 2, out of work. So I'm going to take the 8 and go to the 1, the 2 and go to the 1. And then I'll just do that. I just mistakenly pulled that 1. I don't want to do that. I'm going to do that. So every 8 goes to 1 and every 2 goes to 1 across the bed. So 6 times, because this has 6, this particular granny square or motif, as I call them, have 6 segments. So then there's one more, 8 to 1, 2 to 1. Okay, so now I'm going to make sure those 8s and 2s are out of work, and I can see I've got 6. I've done that 6 times, and so then I'm going to knit across with my color B. Okay, so now that was that first row of white here. This is where we transferred. Okay, so row 4, my little thing says, still in tension 5, still in hold, still in color B. And it says pull the empty needles to work. So the empty needles are these that we just pushed back there. So I'm going to push those back to work. Okay. The ones in hold are still in hold. Don't move those. And then it says to knit. So I'm just going to knit. Okay, so that's row 5. That was row 4. Now we're on row 5. I'm staying in tension 5, staying in hold, still in color B, and this one's easy. All I have to do is knit. That row I just knit across. I didn't have to change anything. I just knit across. So that was row 5. Now we're on 6, and this time I'm going to go down to tension 4.5 and stay and hold. Oh, no, wait. Here we are. Tension 4.5. I'm going to put the carriage back to normal. So what I'm going to do is flip both of these back to 2, doing it on the other side too, and then cut the yarn B, and then so I'll cut yarn B, which is over here, because now I have to change color. So that was just those 3 rows of white. So I'm going to cut this color over here. And I don't need the white anymore, so I'll just put it away, put it in my tension mask, I guess. tension masked. And then I'm going to hold this down with a clip. So that was just the 3 rows of white. So that was, now we're on row 6. We did all this, we cut yarn B. Now it says to thread A, but yarn, the purple yarn is over on this side, and I don't want to cut it and start it over here, because that way I'm going to have a tail here and a tail here, and I'll have to weave those in at the end. So I'm going to grab the carriage from the left and just bring it over to the right and thread the yarn, because that way it's fine going either way. It's just more convenient because my yarn happens to be over here, because we had an uneven number of rows there. So 6, so it says, so yeah, so we cut the yarn, we moved the carriage, we threaded the yarn, and now it says push the 5s back to upper work. Now this is because we're going to knit off, and we want these tuck stitches to knit this time. We did put the carriage in normal, so if we just knit across, it would do it for us, but just so it's clear, we want these to knit off this time. So I'm going to push them to upper work, so we know that they're going to knit that time, and we're just going to knit across. Okay, so that's row 6. Now we're on 7. This row says tension 4.5, which is what we were on. N, we're already on N. We're on color A, which was the purple. And then it says transfer the 3s to the 2s and the 7s to the 8s, and leave the ones you transferred out of work. So we're going to go in here, and the 7s are going to go to the 8, and the 3 is going to go to the 2. So that we do that all across the bed. 7 goes to 8, and 3 goes to 2. And this is why I numbered every single number, because we're doing a lot of different things with every with all the numbers, so it's goes easier, so you don't have to go which one's 7 and find it. You see it right there. There's your 7. Those go to the 8, and then the 3 goes to the 2. So this may seem kind of confusing at first, but once you've done this once or twice, it's pretty easy, and you could do a whole bunch of these and make a blanket or whatever, whatever you want to do, but they're not so hard. They seem difficult at first, but they're not. 3 to 2, so 7 to 8, and 3 to 2. So the empty ones, which are the 3s and the 7s, should be back there. And we did that 6 times because we have 6 motifs. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can also just look at what you end up with here. You've got 3, 1, 3, 1. That's correct. If it looks weird and something's off, you may want to just go back and double check that you did that part right. So then it says to knit. So we're just going to knit back this way. Okay, so that's row 7. Now we're on 8, and we just have 2 more rows. So you see how fast this goes. This says tension 4. So we go down to 4. So each time we're getting smaller and smaller until that last row. We're still in N, still on color A. And now it says transfer 2 and 4 to 3, 6 and 8 to 7. So 2 and 4 go to 3, 6 and 8 go to 7. So here's 6. No, that's 5. I'm off to the side here, so I can't. There you go. 6 goes to 7. And 8 goes to 7. I'm gonna try to make this look a little better here. Okay, so what we're doing is we're transferring. I'm going to actually pull these all up. It's going to make it a little easier for me to grab them. So 2 goes to 3 and 4 goes to 3. And then let's see, 6 goes to 7, 8 goes to 7, 2 goes to 3, 4 goes to 3, 6 goes to 7, 8 goes to 7. So you see what's happening here is what we're ending up with is, besides that first needle, we have 1, then 2 on a stitch, 1, 2 together, 1, 2. So we're going to have stitches on every other needle once we're done. 2 goes to 3, 4 goes to 3, and then these are going to be out of work when we're done. So let's see now. 6 goes to 7, 8 goes to 7. And of course I'm working from the side here so you guys can see it's really not that hard when you're looking straight at it. And now that I'm coming over to where I am, it's much easier. So 2 goes to 3, 4 goes to 3. So we have 2 there, then we'll have 1 here. We'll push this one over here. Okay, so you can see now we've got, forget about that seaming stitch, that doesn't matter. We've got 1, then 2, then 1, then 2, then 1. So we have stitches on every other needle, and those empty needles need to go back to work. So because they're every other needle, you can just do this. Make sure you don't push that back by mistake. And then we just knit. So this is row 8, so we're going to knit that. Okay, and now we're on row 9. This is our last row. So we go back up to tension 5.5. And then we're still in A, still in A, still in N. And it says push all needles back to work and then knit. So we're going to push, so everything is back in working position. And then we're going to knit across. Okay, and so you see here what happened is I have a knit stitch, then I've got loops on every other needle. See how these are just little loops. And then we drop the loops. So what we do, so every one that has a loop on it is going to come forward and back and drop like that. So it's every other one. And it does that. And since it's every other one, you can use this tool. Make sure you get the right ones. Push those loops out. So these are the ones with the loops, not with the stitches. And go back. And it's kind of fun. And make sure you don't get that last one. So you push these out, the ones with the loops, and then push them all the way back and see how they all drop. So essentially what you did there is made just a bigger stitch. Now, that was our last row. So what we'll do now is we're going to sew off these stitches. And this is basically how we do a hat when we gather it. I'm actually going to go from the left rather than the right because I find that it cinches up better when the yarn wraps around itself. So I'm going to make sure I have enough to go that way and cut. Okay, so then I've got this double-eyed tool. A darning needle is fine. Just thread the needle, and then I'm going to come in from here and get both of these. I'm going to come through the front of each of these and just sew them off. This is a little awkward going from left to right for me, but if I wanted to do it, if I wanted to end up so I was doing it from right to left, I would have had to start on the other side, which means I would have had to crochet cast on from the left, and I think that would be even harder for me as I'm extremely right-handed. I'm not great with my left hand. So, and just make sure you get it every single one, otherwise all your work will have been for nothing. There we go. So that's it. Okay. And then I'm going to take the weights off, and that's it for the knitting portion of this. Now all we have to do is finish it, which requires a tiny bit of seaming and that's pretty much it, besides blocking it, which doesn't take much either. So I'm going to take all my clips off. Actually, take all the clips off except I'm going to put a clip on that tail that I just pulled through so that I know which one it is, because I'm going to have to pull it and I don't want to confuse it, and you'll see. So what I'll do now, I'm going to take this off. So this is what it is, and it doesn't look like a whole lot yet, but that's it. Now what we'll do is I'm going to grab this one I put the clip on, and if I just start pulling on it, I'm trying to do this so you can see. So what's going to happen is it's going to pull, and remember it went around itself, so that's that yarn there. Okay, so what's going to happen, that was the yarn we started with. So I'm going to pull this, and it's coming around and it's going to pull itself closed. Let's see. So I'm just going to try to pull it tight, and then when I pull it tight, that's how I get that sort of middle part. And I'm going to pull it as tight as I can. And because I went around like that, it's easier to pull it tight because it's going around itself. So then what I want to do is rethread that needle. And this is that end of the tail that I just pulled through. So I'm going to pull it tight, and to get rid of this, I'm going to go through some of these loops again. So I'm just going through them like this, through the top loop. I'm not going through to the other side. So I'm going through the top ones. It's pretty easy to do because they're big. So you just want to go through them again and pull it. I'm trying to make this so you can see. It's really hard for me to sew things up so that people can see, because it's very hard to get it so I can see it and so the camera can see it, but I'm really trying here. So I'm just going to do that, and maybe go through one more time so that this way it just adds to the middle of the thing, so it makes it a little more substantial, I guess. Okay, so you see how that's what's happening, and then I'm just going to end here. That was the end of the loops. Okay, and then I'm going to go right in, that's the center of it. I'm going to go right through there to the back. Okay, so that's going to be how it's going to look. Now I need to sew this little tiny seam together and unthread that one. So now we've got those two whites there. Let's not worry about those right now. So what I'm going to do is the first tail that you got, I'm going to seam with. I want to get rid of as much as I can here. So I'm going to go over here. First, to join it, I'm going to go like this. Go from here over to here through those two loops there to kind of join it so it looks basically continuous. And then I'll sew this little tiny seam up with a little tiny mattress stitch. So I'm going to get, let's see, I'll go in here. And I gave myself a whole row for seaming, so it seems like it's going to be kind of thick, but it works out just fine. So this is just the same as mattress stitching anything. It's just, and I always do 2 to 2, so, but honestly, this, because it gets all scrunched up, you won't really notice it even if you make a little mistake. So I'm just sewing it so it matches up. Okay, so once I get right about here, I can just take this one and go to the middle. And that one just kind of blends right in with all the other ones going to the center. Okay, so there it is. And now I have my 2 purple yarns here. I'm going to tie those together. Now, if you are going to be tying this to something, you may want to leave these. I'm just tying them together in a little knot so it's secure. Okay, now if you're going to attach this to something, you might want to just leave these out there and you can sew it on whatever you want, like a hat or whatever with those. If you don't want them to show, you can thread both of them and take them and just go through the center of these again, and this time I'm going on the back. So that you can just work them in, and once you go around a couple times or once or whatever, so they're kind of hidden, you just go through, then you can pull them a tiny bit, cut them, and then they'll just kind of disappear right in there. So then the white ones, what you want to do is I'm going to take this one and weave it in through here, just to kind of, I just want to hide these as best I can. So I'm going to go like this. And then this one I'm going to go the other way. I'll probably go through there. Your goal is just to hide these so you can't see them. And make the, you know, your little granny square look as good as you can. Okay, so I've gone through. Okay, now I'll just cut off those little white ones. Okay, so that's what it looks like fresh off the machine. You notice that this one's basically flat and this one's curled up. Now, if you like that look, just go ahead and leave it like that. If you want it flatter, you're going to have to block it. So to block this, I have a little blocking pad. This is a little foam thing. It's part of a whole set, but I don't need the whole thing. And then I took my my square and I got it wet. And then I'm going to put it on there, and I'm going to take some pins, blocking pins. I have a couple of these rainbow ones that are cool, and these little ones. And these rainbow ones kind of can go like this and this. I find for this that these actually worked pretty good. So I'm just going to take a pin, and then I'm going to go pin every point. So these are the actual points right here. So that's one. There's one right there. These are kind of in the middle. And then you can see where they are because you can see that thing, and just kind of pin it so it is kind of stretched into the shape that you want, out to where I think it should go. So the points are right there, and then that's oops. That one can kind of go like that. So you block it into shape like that and just let it dry. Now you can, you could do it just like this and pull these out so they're kind of, so it becomes like a hexagon. Like that. Or you could pull them in some, and then it would become more like a star, like that. You might want to fool around with it. On the ones I showed in the beginning, I blocked these like this so that they would be kind of straight across here. And I mean, they'll sort of stay how you blocked them. They're not going to be, you know, you're not going to change the shape of it entirely, but you are going to get a pretty good granny square. So there it is. And just let that dry for, you know, I pretty much just leave it overnight. These are only, they're 25% wool and 75% acrylic, so they won't take forever to dry. If you're using all wool, it'll take a little longer, but if you leave them overnight, they should be dry because they're not very big. And that's it. If you like the video, please like and subscribe, and let me know if you make these. You can, of course, make different colors. You could do one color on the outside, then one, and then this, or just one color on the outside and the middle. It does, the more colors you have, the more ends you're going to have to weave in. So, just keep that in mind. So if you did one on the outside and then a different color in the middle, that would actually be really cool. So thanks for watching, and let me know what you think.